We are going to have a great show for you today, folks. It's MLK's Day. And you know what? I do have a commentary. But before I get started, I want to tell Tori Mercer, who is handling the boards, I want to tell him hello, welcome to Politics Done Right. And as usual, thank you so kindly for being here as well. We have our manager extraordinaire in the studio. Of course, that's Sandy. Sandy, thank you so kindly for being here, my brother Sandy as well. What we call the manager extraordinaire. Anyhow, we're going to have a great show for you today. It is Martin Luther King's Day. Martin Luther King Day. Where did I get that plural from? You know, I want to start out this morning with having been on the U Talk this morning with Steve Hunter. Great show. Don't forget to tune in at 8 a.m. 5 days a week to listen to Steve Hunter. We had a great show today, and you know, he was discussing about MLK, and he wanted to have my perspective as being a black dude, not from America, but from somewhere else. And he wanted me to kind of ask, or he asked me, what was the feeling in the parts of the world where I'm from with respect to MLK? Did we kind of revere him the way he is by some sectors in America? And I try to explain to him, I think Martin Luther King had a better rapport likely outside of the United States, because at the time that he was fighting for civil rights in the United States, it wasn't always with listening ears that people wanted to follow him or believe in the things that he believed in, the nonviolent struggle, and he got it from both sides. You know, there are some who wanted a violent struggle, and there were others who were thinking that no struggle was needed at all. But he hit the nail on the head as far as a nonviolent type of change. And I think America owes him a gratitude for that. So I think it's important for us to look and take that into account. Anyhow, the title of the show today is an MLK Commentary, which I'll start with, and Billionaires or the Manifestation of a Failed Economic System. I think we need to check that out and be cognizant of these particular issues. Anyhow, let me go ahead and start this way. And by the way, folks, remember there's a call-in show. Give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Please give us a call, irrespective of your thoughts, irrespective of your belief of the holiday or whatever. This is an open forum where we want to hear everybody's voices. That's the only way it works, if we hear everybody's voices. Anyway, this morning I was a guest on Steve Hunter, KPFT's 90.1 FM's U Talk program. The program centralized on MLK Today. It encouraged listeners to call no matter what their message was. One of my initial commentaries was after the country, or rather, the commentary was that the country owed a huge debt to Martin Luther King's stance on forcing nonviolent change. That was not beneficial solely to black folks, but to the entire nation, the entire country. It saved us from a cycle of violence, as all those who were legislative second-class citizens ultimately would have rebelled. So I don't know if folks understand that this MLK holiday is really and truly an American holiday. And one of the callers, a listener, called to reinforce that the MLK holiday was a black holiday and contrasted it to Thanksgiving and Columbus Day. Later in the program, I pointed out that this man's commentary was necessary. After all, his thought process is that of many who generally remain silent for fear others would judge them. The only way to change people's past indoctrination is for them to articulate their indoctrination so we can convincingly correct the record. Silence is the enemy. Fear of expression is the enemy. Talking and teaching critical thinking is a must. Ultimately, that is how we change both minds and hearts. And I'm going to stop there with the essay and try to have a conversation with the audience. And I hope that some of you would not just sit back, but give us a call in, irrespective of your beliefs, irrespective of your thoughts. 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. And hit the number 2. And we'll get you on air right away. But I'd like to get folks in before I go to the other subject to talk about the MLK issue. Your thoughts on the holiday, your thoughts on where we are with respect to the society as a whole. I would love to hear your voice on this issue before I move on to the billionaires. You know, I love talking about the billionaires and all that good stuff, right? But I want to get us into a position of calling. So no fear, no judgments. Give me a call. 713-526-5738. I'm going to bring Tori in here for 1 second before I move on. Tori, your thoughts on the holiday?
Well, I mean, Martin Luther King is, one of our greatest citizens. So, it's everybody should have this day off. Everybody should commemorate Martin Luther King Day the same way, at least the same way we commemorate Thanksgiving and 4th of July. I mean, it's a real meaningful national holiday.
Yeah, I kind of been stressing this for the last few years, right? Because from the time a friend of my wife said something to her like, "Oh, it's a black holiday," and I'm like, "No, it's an American holiday. It really is an American." And I want folks to understand that absent what occurred in those times, that this country could have really fallen into a sort of chaos that many haven't seen. We had a lot of factions that were ready to pounce. And unfortunately, not enough people realize what was occurring. So, folks, give us a call at 713-526-5738. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear your opinions. Because you know what? Until we start talking about all these issues, and I mean really talk and not fear that somebody is not going to understand what you're saying or somebody is going to judge you. This is politics done right, and that is not how we run here. That is not, we are here to have full expression. So I hope a lot of you will call in like now. 713-526-5738. I think there's a person called Dag in green. Go ahead, Dag.
Oh, it's actually Stag, S-T-A-G-G.
Oh, Stag. How you doing, Stag?
I'm doing just fine.
Great. Talk to me.
Well, I just turned my radio on, and I realized, I caught the end of the conversation. I didn't know. I thought it was a topic already I thought it was already in topic, and I was like, okay, I want to say something. Let me listen in first to see what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I just turned my radio on, so I do apologize.
Oh no, not at all. Let me tell you some of the premise that I'm coming from, and I want other people to call into 713-526-5738. Hit option 2. My premise is that I was telling Steve earlier today that when we talk about this holiday, one of my wife's friends said, "Oh yeah, that's a black holiday," and I was trying to tell her. Tell them that. Turn on your radio if you don't mind, my dear friend. I
did. I just turned it off.
Great. I'd like folks to realize that this holiday is actually not a black holiday. It's an American holiday, and it's so important for us to get others that are listening in, others that are hearing what we're saying, to understand why we have to stop looking at these holidays in that fashion. It's an American holiday. Absent MLK, things would have been a lot different in the country because there were a lot of factions ready to pounce then, not using the nonviolent methods but other methods. But go ahead, Stag.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that it should be a holiday for all. That was his whole purpose. Was to try and bring togetherness
right
in the nation, and And I think that we still have some things. We still have some things to work on. We're faced with a different um, agenda
Mm-hmm.
out here in the communities now. It's not just what we were suffering with in the 60s and the 50s. It's something way different than what. So I mean, just dealing with the Martin Luther thing. If we're trying to come back to that, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I would definitely think that we should come together and look at it as one unity.
Right.
To unify as one. So,
And
as far as I really do. I think that we should. It's more to it though now. It's more complex now because we're
yes.
up against. We have a whole nother community of people that we didn't have that was being recognized back then in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a asshole. They see, and now we have to unify that. So we're unifying with same sex
Right.
marriages, and the agenda with that. We have more that we have to work with. We have more. On
You
the
know what?
table,
You know what is interesting, Stack? I'm glad that you said that. And David, I'm coming to you next. But I'm glad that you said that. All these communities that we're talking about having to recognize, right? They have always been there. The problem is most communities that were non-standard, most communities that weren't the majority, had to remain quiet, right? All's happening in America today is America is becoming who it said it has always been, right? That is what's happening now. America is becoming who it said it was for a long time. But these communities have always been there, from the same sex. Well, we can have same sex marriage now, but same sex relationships have always been there. All these
true.
folks,
They have.
yeah, all of this has always been in America. Just there are some people who had to keep everything silent. They were not free to be who they were. Now what people like to talk about identities and all of that. These identities aren't new. Right? But we're finally becoming a place where freedom really rings for everybody. That's all.
Right. Can I make one more statement?
Absolutely,
before,
sir. Absolutely.
I move on. So now, I honestly believe that with the same-sex thing and the gay rights movement,
Uh-huh.
from the time that they actually started their movement, which I don't know when it actually started,
Mm-hmm.
but it has moved a lot faster than the people of color.
Yes.
They've been more effective than the
Yes.
people of color.
Yes.
Why is that so? And I'll leave it there.
Now, Stag, I tell you what, you hold on to that question, right? And I'm going to let you go. But I love that question, and it is a very important question, and we're going to talk about that as well, okay?
Thank you.
You stay listening, brother. David?
Good morning, Egberto. I should say good afternoon.
Nah, you're right. It's good afternoon. How you doing, my brother?
I'm hanging in there. And, hey, as far as whether Martin Luther King was an American,
Right.
so like it or not, if I don't see any problems with having a day to celebrate his birthday. And I know Rourke, when he started out his show this morning, he played that excellent song by Stevie Wonder.
Right.
Happy birthday to you.
Right.
When I first heard that song, I wasn't sure what that song was about. Then I listened to the words and I said, "Oh man, that song's about Brother Martin."
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to talk to you about I might have mentioned